The SPCA's EOP annual refresher. Um, this is an opportunity to have an expanded presentation from the Nevada Department of Education on topics that we have previously covered in the School Safety Committee meeting, where we would spend 10 or 15 minutes. We have the full hour, hour and a half. I want to, on behalf of Dr. Sedano and the SPCSA, we'd like to thank Jeremy Silva for presenting today. Jeremy Silva is the point of contact for the Nevada Department of Education Office of Safe and Respectful Learning Environment. And he is the person that we deal with in the Nevada Department of Education regarding the model plan. He also is the point of contact with the Division of Emergency Management and the requirements of dealing with the submittal and the notice of completion that has to be completed within the Nevada Department of Education. So Jeremy has spent a lot of time working hard to try and make this presentation and the model plan very user-friendly for you. So at this time, we'd like to welcome Jeremy Silva to present on the topic. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Before we get started, I understand that up north you had early release. You also had a late start. If you are here from up north and you're attending from school, this is recorded. Just go home, drive safe, take the extra time to get to where you need to be, and we'll get the recording to you later. If not, I understand and I appreciate everybody for taking their time to be here. But again, this is not worth the time and effort to combat the weather. So if you are up north, please just go home and enjoy a slower drive. So anyways, I am with the Nevada Department of Education, as Tony said, and I'm here to provide the annual refresher for you guys here at the SPCSA. Now, based on last year's stuff and some feedback I received, most people wanted to hear about how you build your committees and how you actually run the committees itself. So that's what I was trying to focus on in this year's presentation. Now, this is going to be a little bit interactive. Everything you type in there is going to be considered anonymous. I won't know who's saying what. I won't know who's replying to what. So before we get started, I'm going to ask you guys to look at the link in the chat. There is also a QR code you can attempt from your phone or from the web browser. This way, when questions pop up, you'll be able to chime in and join. There will be some questions in there and you can write your ideas and stuff. Again, everything that you write is anonymous and it doesn't show who is saying what. Also, if you look on the bottom of your screen, you see these little icons with little thumbs up, heart, a little laugh, shocking face, and a crying face. You're free to put as much as you like. You just can't take it back. So you can hit it 100 times, like nonstop, hit wow, 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 wow. It just stacks on top of each other, so it can't come back. So I'll give everybody just a few moments to be able to log in. And again, the link is in the chat. Please click that. It will open up a separate browser for you to follow along with the presentation as well. I do not have eyes on the chat from Teams. So, or if you raise your hand or you have questions, it's easy if you just come off mute and ask and fire away than it is because I'm probably going to miss it.
Jeremy, I'll keep an eye on the chat, and
okay,
if they
perfect.
raise their hand, I'll let you know. So
okay.
Don't worry.
Thank you. So I'll give it just a couple more seconds for everybody to either chime in by using the link from their web browser or by using the QR code to join in from the phone or mobile device.
Before we get started, Lorraine had her hand up.
Please do.
Lorraine, do you have a question?
Good job there, Dr. Sedano.
Tony's on it.
No?
No, was the raised hand feature an accident? Okay.
Yeah, it was, but Lorraine Watson has a raised hand, but maybe she was taking it down. I don't know.
Okay. So anyways, back to why I'm doing it this way is because people wanted to know how we would run our committees. And the statute tells you that you have to have a committee. It doesn't say how you have to operate the committee. And I am actually required to host a development committee as well. And NRS says I only have to have, I believe, 3 entities where you all have to have a minimum of at least 9. So I decided this year for when we're building our committee is that I want to mimic how you all have your committee. So I tried to include the same membership into my committee. It is a struggle. I'll get into that a little bit later. So I applaud everybody who's been successful in making EOP committees happen. So to get started, I would just like a simple poll. Have you ever served on an EOP development committee? Just so I can gauge where everybody's at, if there's anybody new. Perfect. So ideally, when everybody here would be on top of the EOP committee, if you are not in charge of the committee, you should at least be serving on it because you are all part of SBCSA's trainings. You all go through this process with them, and you take all these trainings to learn more about and enhance your skill set and expertise. So ideally, you should be at least on the committee. Now, committees are actually supposed to be developed and set up by the board. So while there is 10 of you that have been a part of the development committee, that's fantastic. 3 of you have not. I'm just going to keep going. So this actually helps me understand where everybody's at. So thank you for responding to that. So some of the common questions I get, right? Do I have to include each member listed in the committee? The answer is yes. If the NRS says at least one, you have to have at least one. There is optional members that you can include. You can include more than each member. If your whole board wants to serve on the committee, that's allowed because as long as you have at least one. Do you have to be, doesn't have to be in person? No. I make mine hybrid. My meetings are done. I offer in person, but I also do a virtual component because I do mine to represent the entire state. So I have people from all over that attend. For you, it might be easy to do a fully in-person thing. And I also found that most people, if you tell them it's virtual, they're more likely to show up. I mean, I understand that it might be a part of your school, so maybe for you it's easier. But for me, I've had difficulties getting everybody in the room at the same time. I have actually had to spread it out over the course of weeks. I started in January. My next meeting is in March, so I have to do it through multiple sessions because of that. What do they have to sign? There is actually a form that I'm going to show a little bit later, which actually outlines who was in attendance and who reviewed the plans. I actually got a couple complaints from schools, some people that they call themselves little whistleblowers, saying that they didn't actually hold the meetings. All they did was sign the paper. Unfortunately, that paper is also your documentation that you did what you need to do. I can't prove that they just haven't signed the form or whatever capacity. But once, if you are asked to sign the paper and you didn't have the meeting, do not do that, please, or at least make sure you review the plan because that is still in violation of the law and it has to go to your board. And I wouldn't want to risk you losing your job just to make things easier or because it was a little bit difficult. I can't tell you how to operate. Each district and each school has their own policies and guidelines to follow. I can only tell you what the law is, and I can't tell you how to interpret it yourself. But my thing is, do not sign anything unless it's actually been done because it still is an official document that is submitted to so many different entities that says, plus you also build a liability. If you sign a document, you don't actually follow through, you're putting yourselves at risk. It's like worst case scenario and something happens. So what if you can't get the full membership to coordinate times? I can't do it. I can't imagine you guys are going to be able to do it 100% of the time. If you can't get them to coordinate times and show up at the same time, do the best you can to actually make it work. But whoever shows up, try to focus what you're dealing with the expertise of the person, right? So if you have a mental health expert, try to at least get the mental health components out of the way. I mean, they can still chime in and deal with everything else with physical security or safety or climate, but make sure that you have at least the experts in the room there to talk about the expert or the component that they are experts in. So if you can't do it, I mean, do multiple meetings. That's what I've had to do. I'm going on to my 3rd meeting now just to make this work. And if that's what you have to, great. Do members have to be selected through a formal process? Again, this state law just says you have to have them. We can't tell you how you select your members. Each board is able to make that determination. The governing body might give it to one person who's now responsible for coming up with the membership, or they might want to pick up every seat. That's up to them at their own discretion. The law just says you have to have the committee. It doesn't say how to do it. So I can't give you the right or wrong way, but I can tell you what is some good best practices. The goal is to be when you're making your representation that it's thoughtful and diverse, right? The statute does say you require categories, but an effective committee will always benefit from individuals who bring different perspectives, experiences, and roles within the school community to that table. When it comes to education experience, I will always tell you that it doesn't always mean subject matter expertise, especially when it comes to emergency planning, right? Because emergency planning and emergency operations, these are subjective. And, like as an example, a parent may not have formal training in emergency management, but they can give you really good insight into the communications expectations from a parent's perspective into a crisis. Or a teacher may not be a security expert, but they'll understand the classroom realities and student behavior during emergencies. So even though that they're not experts in the role, they don't have the education to be a part of that, bringing their combined viewpoints will have more valuable answers for you than just relying on one person. So even though it's not a formal process, I've had people that will send out a survey that says, if you're interested in applying, join us. Otherwise, I've had a school that just picks everybody that they can get that's they're willing to take that can fit the roles, because it's hard to find, somebody in emergency management or law enforcement. So that goes back to, can a parent serve multiple roles? No. If they are in a parent seat, they're in a parent seat. If they're a law enforcement officer, have them be the law enforcement officer seat. Don't have them serve as a law enforcement officer and a parent, because you still have to meet that 9-person threshold for meeting your committee. If you don't have school police, well, then you don't have school police. You don't need that seat. It specifically says for schools with school police, and I don't think anybody in SBCSA has any school police. Is that correct, Dr. Sedano? Everybody might use security, but not.
No,
Okay,
we do not. Yeah, we don't have school
perfect.
police. But I do want to bring this back when you were talking about signing. The signatures might be a little off because if you weren't able to attend the formal meeting, maybe they had a separate meeting. So it's still okay to sign that sheet, correct, Jeremy?
It is okay as long as you had
Okay.
reviewed and did what you're supposed to do. Just don't lie and sign it because they want to get this another check mark off of the box. And also, especially when you have 9 people that are going to be making and signing off on this sheet, somebody's willing to tell the truth, and it's not worth anybody's job to try and circumvent some rules. So do you have to have more than one person from each category? You sure can. I always recommend it. If you got multiple people that can fit the role and they're more than willing, go for it. I've had people ask if they have to compensate and pay members. No, but you'd be surprised how providing a lunch will go a long way to get people to show up to your meetings. You can ask Tony and Mary Kay. I don't offer anything, and I'm lucky if they show up. So, do I need to say members year to year? No, you don't. Again, try to make it diverse, right? If you're going to be bringing the same people every time, you might get a little bit more familiarity, but you also know that there's a lot of turnover when it comes to schools. So maybe it might be better to get people more trained and used to what's going to be in the process as they go through from year to year. So you might have better success in the long term. What documentation should we maintain for compliance? The only thing we look for is your sign-in sheet and your EOP. That's the only, and your notice of completion, the only things I look for. But other entities and your school board might have different things. But whatever you fill out for documentation compliance, that is up to SBCSA has their own requirements. Academica might have their own requirements. Your school board might have their own requirements. It's really dependent on your governing body and who you are. I am going to look for EOP in your sign-in sheet in your notice of completion. That is the main thing that I am going to tell you is what the law says. Again, you might have internal district or charter school policies that are going to matter. But whatever you do inside, remember that this is all confidential. So don't put something that is going to give too much information that will now be able to go back and everybody will know what's in your document or anything like that. Because again, it is a document that you are signing. Again, anything you sign could potentially become public facing, and you just want to be careful with that. And then yes.
To ask, is their notice of completion has to be posted on their website. So they do have to take a screenshot that it's posted on their website.
Okay, that's what the SB say. You guys require the screenshot?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then
they not to post the EOP, just a notice of completion.
Now when it comes to notice of completion, that's actually a good thing. Now you require verification every year. We at the department, we only do an a random audit of school submissions to look for the notice of completion. So even if you didn't post it prior, you probably fell through some cracks because I didn't know about it, because I'm not looking at every school to look for that compliance. We just randomly select schools to look for that notice.
But that's
And
good because now they know it's not just a requirement from us, but your NDE will be looking as well.
and it's
So
actually in state statute that it
that's
is required. So we do look for it, but they're also, just because you have to have it, doesn't say well you have to post it. It's a lot easier if you put it like just on the bottom footer that says emergency operations or whatever, or something that makes it so I can find it easier, so we're not digging around. But there's no requirement set place that you have to post your notice of completion, just that you have to have it. And then the big one I always get is, what if we fail to comply? Well, unfortunately, the law doesn't outline any compliance punishments or anything like that. I do know what happens in the past is they get it, the Division of Emergency Management will make a report by January 1st. And in this report, it outlines every school that has not submitted on time and complied with the provisions of the law. And then the news stories will run an article, and then the school will get a bunch of calls. If you haven't submitted to police department, I believe the police will show up at your door and they'll actually come looking for your plan. I believe we might have a couple schools that were mixed up this year, because I want to make this important distinction is that even though you submit your plan to SBCSA, your notice of completion to me, or your thing to the Division of Emergency Management portal, that's just like one of many different portals. We do not share your plan with anybody. You have to still submit it to all the different entities on your own. So if you make a plan, expect to submit that same plan like 8 or 9 times. I don't even know what the exact number is, but it's a lot of different agencies that receive it. And what if I can't find a member for a particular seat? This one comes up a lot. Reach out to me, Dr. Sedano, Tony. Most of my network, actually, I got network through Tony, and I go to events and I meet people. And now when I meet people, one of the first questions I'll ask them is, are you willing to sit in on an emergency operation planning committee if a school has a need? That's normally one of my first questions when I'm out there meeting people. And so what I do now is I will go to conferences and try to find contacts for all of you. You can always reach out to me anytime, and I will do my best to find it. A lot of times, if I don't know somebody, I just start cold calling places and bugging people, because that seems to be the most effective. And a lot of people will tell you, I don't know why you need a fire person or what this is or anything like that. So if you make that request, I've reached out to firehouses on behalf of schools and explained it on their behalf and got them a person. So I'll do my best to support you. Just make sure you reach out to me. I mean, I don't need to be the first point of contact, but I am a point of contact to support you if you have that need. It is really hard to find members, and I get that, especially when, you know, timelines and you have jurisdictional issues to come up with. So do your best. One thing that I do have coming is this. This is a free event that is next week, but it's a security and safety summit, which does include stuff for schools. This is how I make contacts. I'll reach out to, I go to events like this, and hopefully there might be some people that are there. Again, it's free. At the very least, it's a paid lunch in the store of Allegiant Stadium. So you can't go wrong. But again, it's short notice, so if you can't make it, I understand. Also, this is the form that I was talking about when they're going to have a sign-in sheet. Notice that there's some highlighted areas. This isn't the way it is in our model plan. In our model plan, we outline some things that are highlighted. If the text is highlighted, that means you need to change the text to suit the needs of that particular thing. So this is from 23-24. You would obviously change it to the current year. If that date is not updated, it is automatically rejected. No matter how comprehensive your plan is, we will reject that plan and tell you that you have to go back and resubmit. Also, role of a member, that's for your optional seats. If you run out of space, just add new lines, whatever. This is just an example of what we're looking for and looking at. You don't have to use this form in its entirety. You can make up your own forms and sign-in sheets, but please include something that shows that all your members were present or approved of the contents of the plan. So what came out of last legislative session? AB 454. This came out and it was approved and went into effect as of July 1st. This plan says that you have to have a plan for immediately respond to a medical emergency involving the heart, including without limitation a person in cardiac arrest. So with this new law, we are looking for the word cardiac arrest. You have to specifically say cardiac arrest in your plan. Now, if you have a medical plan already to respond to emergencies, just add one. If you don't have anything that says cardiac arrest, just add it to that section and say including cardiac arrest. It's very simple. They also changed the thing that says that when you're looking at your committee members, you can now include a provider of healthcare who has specific skills, training, and experience to respond to medical emergencies involving the heart. For my development team, I brought in the head of cardiology or something like that from UNLV. Again, he's probably going to be willing to provide a resource. If you want to include someone with a medical background, reach out to me. And their law does outline, again, what constitutes as a provider of health, right? A nurse. Good enough. You don't even have to have this person on your seat committee, but they're probably going to be more versed in speaking to that. There's also other components that were included in this bill that I didn't include on the slide. This bill also says that you have to include and training for any time that if you are part of any sporting event that is training on-site, off-site, whatever, you have to have somebody trained in CPR and first aid. Generally, that would be your coach. So that includes for trainings as well. So if you are providing a training, you have to have somebody that has cardiac arrest or respiratory pulmonary resuscitation training. The bill originally did say EDs was required. It is taken out of the law. You do not need to have an AED on campus. However, just be ready. They're talking about trying to revisit this, but I believe that there was discussion also trying to make a grant available. If it's an unfunded mandate, I apologize, but just be ready from 2027. We don't know what's coming and we don't know what it's going to look like. But I do know that there was talks to revisit this bill to expand requirements for heart needs. So just a quick survey here. Does your EOP address county mitigation plan? This is a requirement in your EOPs. Do you know if you, in your EOP committees, looked at the county mitigation plan for your county? So what is required under the bill is that you have to actually pull up your county mitigation plan to make sure that there's needs specific to it. And so in our model plan, we actually did add something that's going to address this. Most people don't know. And that's one of the things that we found is like 2/3 of the people on the committee don't really understand what's in the plan. And that's why they want to know how we conduct our EOP development committees because of reasons like this. Should you know what's in the plan? Ideally, yeah, but is it realistic that you're going to? Probably not, because we could see hundreds of pages, and I don't expect you to know everything verbatim. So what is the county mitigation plan? So each county has required under law to have a plan that notes mitigation strategies. So if you go to this website here, the OEMNV dot blah, 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 I'll place that into the chat so everybody has access to it. This will take you to a website, and it's got a list of every single county's mitigation plan. And in it, it will outline certain things that are specific hazards to your area. So for this one, again, this is actually required on the law that you have to address anything in this plan. So one of the things that you'll find, so here's a couple examples of the mitigation plans that you can find for Clark County, right? It notes earthquakes, dam failure, you're probably not going to find that in Lander. I don't know, whatever. Infestation, stuff like that. So you have to have in your school, if you're located in this county, you have to address every single one of these little needs. Washoe County's here as well. I only picked 2 counties with the highest populations since it might be most applicable to you all here. But Washoe County's got a lot more. If you notice, this only goes to page 265. I think it's like 300 or 400 pages. So there's a lot more that I didn't copy into the thing. But you have to include it. But would you notice that this one's got extreme weather, this one's got climate change. So in the model plan this year, we added a utilities failure and extreme weather, climate change, or whatever section you want to know. So again, if you see that it's yellow highlighted text, if you note and if you want to use what we provided, you may just make sure you change it to match what is listed in your mitigation plan. If it's utilities failure, power outage, extreme weather, climate change, whatever. Change that topic to this, and then make sure that you get rid of the red text. Anything in red needs to come out if you're going to copy and paste our stuff. And this is specific as a broad range stuff. Make sure you tailor the needs to your school. We brought in to mention heating, ventilation, air conditioning, HVAC failure for utility failures, because one of the biggest things that we found in Clark County is that they report that the biggest activation of an emergency operation plan is AC failure. So because of that, we wanted to make sure we had some type of guide in our document. Now, this is in green. The reason it's in green is because this is optional if it suits your county needs. Under the law, anything we put on model plan has to be listed in your plans. That is actually spelled out and one of, I think the first bullet point in 388.243, and it says that anything found in our model plan. So we made it green to point out that you don't have to include this. We're trying to make it an exception unless it matches your county mitigation hazard section. But in this is what our plan looks like, and we brought it together with the team, and we created this document. Hopefully it would work for everybody. You're free to use it and take it out of our model plan. Just make sure, again, you tailor it to your school, because not every school is going to have the same setup and layout. So I don't know if you have exterior doors or whatever. But this can meet the need for part of the mitigation plan, but you have to have each part listed in this mitigation plan. Some of it's already required, but you can't just meet one section and count it. Terrorism will be kind of hard. I don't know where to begin with that one. So another poll. Our committee includes optional members such as student and mental health professionals, right? I'm sorry, mental health professionals is wrong. It's supposed to say medical professionals. I just want to know where everybody's committee is at. If anyone's actually bringing in additional members that are optional, or if you're actually bringing in just the core required groups. And that's what I'm looking for. Now, when it comes to the optional members, it says without limitation, and it gives you 3 examples: a judge, a student, and a medical professional. You can include anybody you want. It just gives you examples of what you can bring in. I think bringing in a student is always a great idea if you are in a high school, because one, it gets them interested in the process, and 2, it can help build that climate and culture that safety is a priority. And I mean, no matter how secure or safe your school is, unless you get people to buy in and believe, it's not going to be really things. So ideally, at least explore the options, which it looks like most people are doing. So thank you for at least considering what you can bring in. And whoever school brought in, we only have one yes, that's phenomenal. If whoever answered that, I'm curious what optional member you brought in. Was it a student or judge, a lawyer, or medical health professional? Just out of curiosity, whoever said yes, if you don't mind answering. But I mean, you don't have to.
Tony. Is it Tony?
No, look, hold on. Let me bring up the chat.
It's me, Joseph Palmaffi. I thought safe school professional
Oh, that's good.
count as that. So
Yeah.
that's the one optional.
That works, because I mean, you can. I'm always willing to come in and sit as an optional member too. I've sat on many committees. I can't speak on behalf of the school because I don't know your school's needs and its layout, but I can help facilitate or give best recommendations and things. But I don't mind. But I'm glad somebody had an optional member. So again, when you build a development committee, you have to minimum 9 members, and I believe most people, the board, I don't know who provides your membership, if it's decided by the board signs one person to pick the members, or if they pick every single member themselves. That's up to each different entity. We don't determine how you guys find the people, just that you have the right people. So I think it might change based on that. Actually, Tony, I still had the chat up, so please, Tony.
Many boards have a board of governance set up so that certain duties are assigned or given to principals.
They
And
designate
so
ahead of time. So
it's designated by their board of governance, by their policy. Because think about this: if you go to do your membership through your board it has to be noticed. And then because it's confidential, now you have to go into executive session. Then one of the members can't come. Now you have to do a change of the agenda item. So a lot of boards, because of what that is, it's just like you said, what if all the board members want to be part of the committee? Great. Well, you can't, because you'll violate open meeting laws, and the deputy and the attorney general will not allow your board to every member be part of your development committee. So there's some things in there that, even though the law doesn't tell you specifically how to do it, the way the board is set up or the way things are, there's certain ways to do it. It's just like on the mitigation. Yeah, you have to cover all the things for mitigation, but on several of the counties, if they use the state mitigation plan, they have tsunami listed. So you've got to put a tsunami tab in your, so there are things like creating catch-alls that cover all things not previously listed, but are contained in the state or county mitigation plan. So there's ways to do it without having to create 47 additional tabs to match the mitigation for fusion, sinkholes, and all these other, like I said, tsunamis, hurricanes. But if you go and look at the state and the counties at all of them, you'll see that there's some of these very extreme measures, and they're covered in their mitigation plan. So it's important that in this case on the development committee, that if your board is using a board of governance style where unless it specifically falls within their realm, like within certain things, it's designated to the principal. And so in a lot of our schools, the principal sets it up. I work with the principal or lead principals or executive director rather than the board itself, because of the mandates of how a board has to operate.
To me, that makes more sense to give the power to one person to make it, because again, like you said earlier with the board stuff. I'm sorry, Mr. Pat Mappy? You're muted.
Sorry, this doesn't have anything to do with what Tony was talking about, the boards. I was just looking at the one parent of a pupil and thought, is it allowed for that parent to also work at the school as long as they're not holding one of the other positions?
No, because if you actually read the law, it says a parent of a pupil who is not an employee of the school.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with the licensed teacher. It's a licensed teacher, and an administrator is also a licensed teacher, but you fill one category. So if your employment position is that you're an administrator and you have a teaching license and an administrative license, but you're in an administrative paid position, you should fill the administrator role. You shouldn't add extra administrators. The licensed teacher of the school should actually be a person who is in a licensed teaching position, instructional classroom teacher, something along those lines.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yep. And again, that's just the minimum number. So if you want to include more, you can. But if you get too many members, you're going to get bogged down with and make no progress. And I know with mine, I probably requested 40 different people to join my committee and represent the state. And I only had maybe 15 replies. So I know how difficult it is to fill seats, especially when we're talking about a volunteer position where there's no incentive for people to really do it. But some people will have a passion, and that's kind of what you got to hope for, right? So how do we run a meeting? Again, it's not defined by statute, right? This is at the discretion of the lead person. Hopefully the lead person is identified to the one person and not a whole set of people. I'm sorry, I just read the chat. It's very difficult to secure state or local emergency management county district board of health representatives. Do you have a suggestion how to secure these members for schools? Shelley, are you down south or up north?
I'm south in Las Vegas.
So I do have contacts, and I know that you're right. They're very slim pickings, and it's hard to get them to join. But if you reach a point where you haven't still gotten anybody, they will bump you up the priority list if I ask.
Okay,
So let me know.
okay.
Ideally, it wouldn't come to that, but unfortunate reality is, you're right. It just, there's only so many people and hundreds of schools that need
Ex-
the same people.
Is there any model that would allow for all of the SPCSA Southern Charter Schools and all the SPCSA Northern Charter Schools to come together and be able to access these individuals in the same time period?
That is an interesting, actually, idea. I mean, because there's nothing that says that you have to make a development plan for your school, right? I mean, it doesn't say that you can't do it in conjunction with the notes. Tony, let me ask you, when you're building your thing and you represent what, 13 schools or something, you combine when you do yours, right?
No,
Oh, you don't?
no,
Okay.
I don't combine boards. So, if, you can combine schools that fall under one board, but since
We're talking about just trying to get the representative from the District Board of Health in the one place at one time.
so what I do is you make him a remote member. He doesn't attend, you send him the material, have him
Yeah.
review it and ask for an input. A lot of times you may not be able to get somebody to actually be on the meeting. Okay, so,
Review it.
and it doesn't, none of the stuff says they have to sign a document. You have to account for their input. You have to account for them being a member. So if you're doing email exchange and they're giving you input, then you're listing them as a member. And if you have an in-person meeting, you just say who's filling that role, and things like that. There's ways to make it work, because the likelihood that you can get all these people representing these different disciplines is very difficult, because especially with a Board of Health member for charter schools, the 69 schools or 60, I don't know how many, Dr. Sedano, in Clark County, that means that Board of Health representative has to sit on 68 boards.
And you're only
Yes.
counting charter schools. This
I'm
private
not
school
counting,
crazy.
I'm
Yeah.
not counting
That's right.
the 100 private schools.
Mhm.
So theoretically, in Clark County, there's about 180 people or 180 development boards. Now, it might be a little less, like a Somerset, that's 7 schools, 1 board. So it does, that 69 goes down a little bit. But it's nothing like what goes down with Clark County, 300 schools under 1 board, 300 plus schools. So
But the thing is, the best practice is not going to change regardless of what school you're at. So that is something I do want to explore. I am going to reach out and see maybe there's a way we can do like a generalized format. We invite someone from the Board of Health representatives to talk about their components of how they contribute to whatever. Maybe something like that would be useful.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Yeah.
And one more thing to keep in mind, when you submit an epicenter, we accept typed names. We don't require signed signatures. You just type the names of the people who attended. So that's it, because some of them are virtual, some of them are through
Digital
email.
signature is okay. Thank you for
So
pointing that out.
you just type it. So don't get like caught up with that. We don't actually need you to go trace them down to get their signatures. So just keep that in mind. And then
Okay,
we have a comment in the chat.
Okay, so I see there's a fire marshal. Fire marshal does meet actually the thing. They're great. They're probably a lot easier to get because they're considered local emergency management under the state definition. We'll bring it up. Okay, Tony's saying no, so I'm gonna have to look it up because I could have swore the definition of NRS emergency management local.
okay, so the fire marshal, it depends. Is that a state fire marshal or a local fire marshal? And what is their certification? You have to get input from the state fire marshal, so you can get input from them regarding it. That's in there, but the membership's not required. But if you can get one and you have one and there's one willing, then that's where it is.
So can they? So under does it meet the definition for this law? Local emergency management. Technically, I
Typically
think
not.
they
A fire marshal does not run an emergency management, does not perform emergency management functions, typically. But again, you have to find out, is that a fire marshal? Now, if that could be a fire marshal that works within the city of Henderson in the Office of Emergency Management. Well, then, yeah, that, so you change one little piece and it could change
Yeah.
what the answer is. Now, as somebody had asked about a health inspector, again, the health inspector is usually on food related items, whereas the Southern Nevada Health District is on public health, which is dealing with outbreak of disease, mass casualty, and the other items usually. So usually the health inspector doesn't fit that need, but the health inspector is an employee. If the health inspector is an employee of the Southern Nevada Health District, well then, yes, they may fit that standard. The Southern Nevada Health District may allow that health inspector to be the representative. Usually the Southern Nevada Health District or Northern Nevada Health District or Central, they're usually a person that is either a planner working for that health district or in infectious control or one of the other emergency response. So it's planning, emergency response is usually the person that would help you.
Yeah, so I'll go back to what Tony said. I do agree. It does depend on the roles and functions that the fire marshal will be doing, as well as the health inspector. But emergency management is defined as an organization created with emergency management functions, which is defined. So I would argue that depending on the roles, because it does say respond to fires, floods, earthquakes, of course, they have to be direct or provide support in search and rescue operations for persons and property distressed. So it really depends on the role in which they are serving within the capacity of their or agency. Honestly, if you got a name there, I don't have the time to go back and fact check. But don't lie. Make sure that you do your due diligence and fill everything you can. We do have to do a random audit of plans each year. And you don't want to be pulled for audit just to find out that you misinterpreted somebody's stuff. So just
One
keep
of the
that in
problems
mind.
you're typically going to have with a state fire marshal versus an emergency manager is a state fire marshal or a fire marshal in general is dealing with code compliance, compliance of building codes, compliance of fire codes, national codes. They are not necessarily built for the ICS, the incident planning, response, recovery, mitigation. Well, the reason why you're wanting an emergency manager representative is because in the law, it requires that you have stuff for recovery, for mitigation, for response, for these different steps that are contained in emergency management and in your plan. Now, by all means, for all we know, your fire marshal used to be the emergency manager for Story County and has the experience necessary to sit on your board. So that's for you to look into. Just realize, what is this person's supposed to be applying to my plan?
Well,
What
I mean,
information?
I get what you're saying about the past history, right? Maybe he was in emergency management. Maybe he's got the best expertise, but he's going to fit as an optional manager member because now I'm going to be looking at he's no longer representative of the state and local emergency management team. So now it's going to be an optional person, but it's still a great person to include. Just make sure that the shoe fits, right? So you might have to do a little
Jeremy,
bit.
I think Craig has a question.
Yeah.
Craig, did you have something to say? I thought he had.
No,
muted
no, I
himself.
didn't have anything.
Oh, okay.
But however you proceed, again, if you're not sure, just ask the person. I'm sure they'll answer. They'll have a better response and know better than I will. So, and if not, I'll start making phone calls and asking them to. Okay. So, anyways, these are different options that I threw out that you can do to run your meeting. You can do a checklist method. You can do a traditional meeting format. But whatever you do, again, each meeting is confidential and not subject to open meeting laws. You can go page by page. This is the way I've traditionally done it, is going page by page of things or updates. The reason I do it this way is because A lot of people that come to these committees, this is their first time on a committee. They don't know what the process is. They don't know what the purpose is. They don't know what's in the document. So you're educating them as you go. And then they might chime in and say, well, why'd you word it that way? So that takes a very long time, and it's not recommended if you're pressed for time. I always say open with a debrief, do a subcommittee model. Maybe you're going to have it where you're going to break into little small groups to meet virtually for one thing and then bring it back to the bigger group later on. This is also how we did it this year, where we're working and building our annexes and then bringing it to the bigger group and then reviewing it instead of having everyone chime in at the same time. But we do still review everything together and then open with an exercise and focus on your compliance needs. So just as an example for your checklist, this is actually from Academica. Tony made this checklist. Look at each one, plan for all hazards approach, yes, no. It tells you what the law is, how you can meet it, where you can, and then mark where you find the page. If you submit this with your plan and you get pulled for audit, if you have this, you just saved us probably like 6 hours to go into each person's plan because there was probably about 55 questions that we have during each audit where we go through and we have to read your entire plan and then we have to find the page where it's located. So this would save us a lot of time. And then because we do miss, right? So when we send you a little, if you get pulled for audit, we look at your plan and then we miss some stuff and you actually had it in there. Unfortunately, that's our fault, but some of these plans are, 800-900 pages and we're going through trying to do it for each, I think we review like 50 plans a year. If you want to know if you've been pulled for audit, you can reach out to me. I'll see if you're still on, because once you pull for audit, you won't be pulled for audit for another probably 3 or 4 years. We intentionally make it so you're not pulled twice. We ideally do give you feedback if you're pulled for audit, and we'll tell you, these are the ways you can improve your plan. However, we won't know if you actually implemented those changes. So it's up to you to actually take our recommendations and advice. And our recommendations are completely compliance based. So I might tell you that you didn't, or you have this in your plan to meet the functional requirements and identified hazard for fire. I might say, even though you have it, please double check it for improvements. And I might give a little bit of guidance and stuff and what you can do to say before, after, during, whatever for training. But I can't tell you how to write the plan. So you do not have to do it. You just have to tell you that it's compliance based and you met it, but it could probably be improved. But if you have the component, we are not allowed to. We can't take a plan that you had, no matter how poorly written it is. If you met that checklist part, you get the credit.
Dr.
And
Sedano, has this list been made available to all of the SPCSA people?
I'll make sure that Jeremy includes it in the resources
So
when we send out the reporting.
In my model plan, I actually stole this checklist from Tony. So I'm going to tell you right now, I debadged Academica and I took the thing and put it in my model plan checklist stuff. But Tony gets the credit. He made it and it is phenomenal and it's a great resource.
And it's got all the updated with the new legislation and everything. It's on that one, correct?
Correct. So now it does match
Yes.
also our review checklist, sort of. For some
I'm not
reason,
doubting Tony. I'm not doubting Tony whatsoever about being there. I was just making sure that this one is everybody's looking at is the most updated one that I know Tony would make the right corrections on.
the
20,
checklist
26,
though.
yeah,
go ahead.
26, 27, this is the right one. So if it says 26, 27 on the top, it is. And then now when we met last week with the Nevada Emergency Preparedness Association, they had a meeting down in South. When we went, we talked with representatives from the Division of Emergency Management because I'm trying to get them to actually give me what they lay next to the plan. And if they do, if they hand me a checklist that says, this is how we evaluate your plan, I'm going to change mine to match theirs.
And I do want to point out what Tony's talking about. Our checklist that we get for auditing is completely different. Like you see suicide on Tony's checklist. It says he had to plan for suicide. Office of Emergency Management has 10 different checkmark boxes related to suicide, which is relating to one part of the lie. I don't understand where it came from, but I'll get it to you, Tony.
It was done 4 years ago. And so what we've asked DEM is, please give us whatever you're going to lay next to the 26, 27 plan. So our hope is the State Public Charter School Authority has asked them, we talked with Dr. Sedano, we talked with them to do that, because if they give us that, then I'll put out a document that looks like this that matches theirs. And so if you fill it out and send it in to whoever's reviewing it, you should be in a lot better shape. I can tell you this has what is in the law. I know for a fact that the checklist that was used last year for 25, 26 does not have every requirement. They had not updated it. So, and I'm not talking about AB 454. I'm talking about things like
Safe storage of
the
firearms.
firearm notification.
Yep.
I'm talking about a couple of the other categories that are in there.
And this list is very thorough. It encompasses all of it. So,
Yeah. So this is a great list, and I would recommend following that for your checklist, especially that way you know that you meet the compliance every year. The other option that I said is debrief previous year. So I'm just going to do some quick debrief on this is statewide data. So do you guys, because the reason you do this is that you can focus, right? So you know where to put your attention or know what's working. You can find, identify trends, whatever. So your total enrollment, we have things, we know how many kids were absent. We know how many bullying related suspensions and all that stuff that occurred. I brought in data from why our teachers were leaving our school. This is actually statewide. Again, you know, a lot of them are leaving for dissatisfaction, administrative leadership, poor communication, lack of influence they had over school policies. That tells me right there that maybe we need to include more teachers in our development plan committees. Maybe we need to have better training for our supervisors and administrators to support our teachers more, right? So this is to give some general idea. I'm sorry, this is not a reason. So very important reason, right? So again, this just gives you a basic idea of where you can focus your attention for EOPs. Because again, do you have time to go page by page and fill out the entire thing? I don't know. Ideally, I hope you do, but you have schools to run. Suspension data. I have expulsion data. I can get you everything for your district or your school, just off Nevada report card. If you submitted, you are required to submit stuff for suspensions and behavioral intervention stuff, I believe, in a plan. I don't know if that's required for charter schools, but I know school districts have to. If you submitted anything, I can pull up old data from previous years and get you any information you need. If you have school buses, bring in your school bus data. This is what is the failure rates from all of our school buses across the state, right? 29% of our buses at one point was out of service. I cut off the month stuff here, but it was based on quarters or location or something, and I intentionally took off the location data. So total wide though, statewide, out of buses are being put out of service at a 34% rate for one reason or another, and these are the different things. So data-driven decision is always recommended. If you don't know what data to include, just grab any data you can that might relate to the EOP. If you know what's in the EOP, you should be able to know what to look for this. And the reason I included transportation data, because a lot of people do have transportation stuff, and a lot of people include transportation services in their plans where they'll say we'll have drivers on standby. Realistically, though, it's not possible because there's still CDL laws and maybe they're off duty during the day. But so it's always good to include your transportation team at some point in that conversation, especially if you're going to put them in your plan to be able to respond to emergencies. I included Safe Voice data. If you want your Safe Voice data, I can pull up every single Safe Voice data for your school. The only thing I request is one, you don't share it because Safe Voice data is confidential and I can only share it with one person. That's the administrator. I can't give it to your board or your presentation, stuff like that, but I can get you your school's data. You just can't share it. But this is always a good way to know because look, we have suicide threats at a high rise in the past year. So now we know we need more mental health supports, drug distribution statewide, planned school attacks. So always data driven is always nice to know where you want to focus your points in EOPs. So what are the benefits of debriefing, right? Just different stuff. So you can create that feedback loop for improvement. I'm just going to skip along because we're only got half an hour left and I do want to respect everybody's time. So I want to get into a short tabletop exercise. I want to thank Tony for helping me make this, because this is really one of the great things. Because again, when people look at EOPs, a lot of them don't know what's in these plans. So opening up with a quick tabletop exercise is always a great way to get people, get them talking, get them involved, get them thinking, and get them contributing. And then you can identify areas where maybe your plan needs a little bit more work. So in this thing, I want you to think about it from an EOP perspective, not as like a tactical perspective on what you should be doing to improve your system or anything. But the idea is that your EOP should spell out every action and step that you are taking, at least in some capacity, to address those needs. So we're going to look at this and just some quick things. Again, everything you submit on this is anonymous. However, you can only submit once. So when you go to submit something, once you hit the submit button, you cannot go back, change it, add to it, or remove it. It is stuck there. So just keep that in mind before you hit submit. Again, there's no wrong answers, but this is simple questions with it. So let's start with this is some basic stuff. Here's our scenario. You're out of school, obviously, I guess. It's 10:30 a.m. and a PE teacher who is outside their class in the school's green space. The teacher hears sirens and observes multiple police vehicles with lights and sirens driving into the area of the school. Now, the reason I would recommend opening with a simple tabletop is one, because it gets people thinking, but it also gets people talking. And there's nothing worse than having somebody in your team who doesn't really feel comfortable contributing. Everyone's there for a reason, and everyone's got great, unique perspectives. Getting everyone at least involved, even if it's an anonymous submission thing, is great. So my question is, what should be the teacher's reaction be in this situation? And please submit anything. But again, once you hit the submit button, it is going to lock you out, and you are not going to be able to change your answer or add another answer. One sec. Sorry, I dropped my pencil. Couldn't add on. So alert the admin. Yeah, I mean, easily stuff, right? Student safety should be a priority. If you can't keep the students safe, then why are we here? And I think that most people here, I believe the priority for everybody's here because you guys all care. I believe every single one of you, even the fact that you showed up shows me that you take this serious and you have a passion for it. Because let's be honest, I've seen people's paychecks. I know you're not here for the money. So, yep. Alert admin and possibly reverse evacuate. That's wonderful. This is exactly what the EOP should have. It should tell the teacher. I mean, the rule of common sense doesn't go out the window just because you have an emergency operation plan. And in my emergency operation model plan, we used to have a section that says, I don't know if we took it out or not, but essentially is that in the moment, hazards, emergencies, they're unpredictable, and you need to do what's best. And nobody will be faulted for taking good faith actions to protect the lives and safety of students. So simple things like this, right? It's great. Everyone's on the same page. You're doing what you can, keep the kids safe, and you're making alerts and you're communicating. Great. So how, to who, and what, if anything's communicated? Most of you answered this in the previous questions. You're learning the admin. You're telling them the things, telling them that, hey, we're going back inside, or whatever you're telling them. And again, this scenario is actually a lower level thing. The first scenario, I'm not going to lie, I had help from AI, and the thing was just like crazy to high level. That was not appropriate. So I do appreciate the assistance to get this at a more realistic and more likely event to actually present this to you guys today. So admin and campus monitor with details of activity, perfect, via the phone or radio. And again, so like when you're saying phone or radio, there should be a communication should be listed in the emergency operation plan and how staff are communicating with decision makers. And I know with the most ICS protocols, they'll say first on scene, the incident commander, but when it comes to school, not realistically going to be the first on scene because they're not going to be trained and experts in ICS. So you're going to want a way to communicate with those that can decide what's going to be the next step for them. And again, alert the facts, right? it's unfortunate, but that's not always common sense. And people panic. They see the things, they start being looky-loo or whatever. Somebody goes down with 911, you always tell people specifically who's going to call 911 because people is going to assume somebody's going to be responsibility to do it. And this is why we train people, and this is why you do simple tabletops, because it gets them thinking and makes them alert. Because again, the more prepared somebody is, or they thought out a scenario, the more likely they are to come out in a better, ahead than otherwise. So I know some people are typing, but I'm going to keep going moving forward. So I apologize if you got something you're typing, just hit send so I can move on. So again, right. So this should include in your section, you should have a basic plan, situational overview, incident assessment, and it should answer what the teacher is responsible for, right? What is the immediate decision points for them? How are they going to do it? Is the first step they should be doing to maybe assess the situation, go over and see what the cops are doing? Maybe think about, okay, there's a situation involved. I'm just going to get these kids to safety. Am I going to call the office first and then get them inside? Ideally, it's situational, but the EOP should really tell them the priority is always life. And somewhere in your plan, it should say protect life, then preserve property, and then environment or whatever. Right? That's a simple emergency management priorities, right?
Jeremy, let me interrupt real quick. And it's just so you know, because it is a national standard across the United States. It's protect life, stabilize incident, then it's preserve property, return to normal, protect crime scene. But it's life and then stabilize. Should be the first. Always protect life and then stabilize. So that's a national response standard. So we want to say it that way. You should be able to get it and put that into your plan. That should actually be in your plan, and it should be in your extracurricular or co-curricular tab that you're required to have, because most of your staff, if they have to run the emergency themselves and they go to make decisions, they should know what the priorities are. So that priority should be in your plan in at least 2 places.
But in this situation, they can't stabilize the incident because that's the law enforcement's response. So, but it should be spelled out. And anything you put in there needs to be trained. Can't just put it in there and then hope it never comes up.
The other part of it is just remember, stabilize incident means something to everybody different. Stabilizing the incident for what's occurring off campus, yes. Stabilizing the incident for the children being outside where police activity is happening.
Yeah.
So realize, even though you're not the first responder for the off-campus police, there is multiple school-related decision points for stabilizing the incident. So, but that they occur after priority of life.
Perfect. Thank you, Tony. So then I think we already addressed everything that the EOP should answer, right? And I believe everybody already responded to that in that previous poll. It was perfect. So functional annex. What would you find in your functional protective actions annex? I think we already addressed it, right? Tony just mentioned it. We're getting people inside. We're protecting the kids. We're not going to go and address the incident that brought the police. We're focusing on the actions for the kids' safety, not the situation. So I'm going to skip this. Don't worry about answering this poll, please. So there's an update after 12 minutes. If unified command is established, the school becomes aware the suspect on the call has barricaded themselves in the house and are not communicating with police. Well, situation, what if they weren't unified, right? And it wasn't established. So we'll say 20 minutes later, the school calls the police for an update and becomes aware that the suspect in the event has barricaded themselves in the house and are not communicating with police. So no matter what, at some point, there should be steps in your plan that's going to outline to find the information on why there's police response there. Hopefully you went with, the top one and not the latter, but situation sometimes isn't always at the speed that we would like. Oh, well, skipping that. Because
those are out of order.
Those were out of order. You're right. Okay, so authority and instant command. What will you find in this section of your EOP? And it should technically be in here at some point in some capacity. You might not call it ICS. You might call it hierarchy. I don't know how you want to label it, but there should be something in here. So what would you find in this section of emergency operation plan? And simply put, If you do with ICS training, make sure you do train your staff on this because it is not common knowledge for someone to know how instant command structure works. Right, who to notify, the roles of people. The roles is very important because on hierarchy, right? Who's gonna do what? Who's gonna make the contact with police? Who's gonna contact parents? Who's gonna maybe call a lockdown in the school if necessary? And who's responsible for what? Perfect. Yeah, that's the whole point of this EOP section. So far we've already looked at multiple sections in our EOP for one simple incident. So then we're looking at concept of operations and incident command. So who's in charge to decide next steps? You're right, the roles, right? That's who we're talking to. So we want to highlight, that we can't be assumed by discovery and must be pre-designated, right? Because, we can't just assume that, okay, this guy found the thing, so I'm just going to make the call. But no, you still have to notify your admin and everything should be listed. And maybe your thing goes a little bit further where it says your admin now has to notify school board or something. I don't know. It's all dependent on your plan. Just make sure that if whatever you put in the plan is put into practice and you can train on this because that's why you're required to do drills so that everyone has a fluid structure because we don't know what's happening with the person. Maybe he's got a gun. We want to make sure that the kids are safe. And your plan is going to be hopefully addressing that. Okay, this is out of order too. So ideally though, the police will tell you what the domestic call is happening. So that's your school. I want to have a communication plan with dealing with external partners and our parents. I would like this simple answer because I audited many plans this past year and communication plan is there for working with perhaps emergency management services or law enforcement, but there's nothing listing what they're doing with parents. And I put them in the same thing, but listing communication with parents is very important, especially when you want to control the messaging. Because by time that these kids are evacuated and they saw police, if those kids have their phones, at least one parent is probably already aware of the situation and knows. Because I got a daughter in middle school. Every time there's a lockdown, I get a text message. Hey, we're on lockdown. And my first question is, why the hell do you have your phone out? But it's gonna happen, and I will call the school just the same as any other parent if I feel that there's a dangerous situation. So having communication plan that addresses protocols and who's making their messaging is important. And I believe ICS, there is always a person for PIO, for public information officer, listed in that. If you haven't done ICS training, you can do IS 100. It's a free training provided by FEMA that you can take online. You just can't do it now because of shutdown. But once it comes back, even though it's an online free training, for some reason they took it down because of funding, but shutdown. But once it comes up, I highly recommend everybody here take that training in some capacity, at least get familiar with the system because it will help you. And everything, when you look at our model plan, we base ours on ICS standard practices and everything like that. So your communication, right? Simple stuff. What's it going to say? Who communicates? How staff are notified? How they're going to notify each other? And what information? Again, controlling messaging is important. So maybe you don't want to tell the kids, "Oh, that guy's got a gun and he's got a hostage." No, we don't want them telling their parents now that they're going to have a lot of panic parents, and it's already a volatile situation and unpredictable. So having your plan that say who's coordinating this is also really important. I believe 70% of information that comes out of any major event in the first 48 hours, 70% is false, or at least in some capacity, a little misleading or wrong. So functional axes, responding with agencies, coordination, right? What should be addressed in this section of your EOP? And so far, we've already looked at communication, incident command, responding with agencies. There's so many different things that one incident is already going to. I haven't even gotten to a lockdown annex and evacuation.
Consider unified command, consider
Tony.
agents.
You're off mute, but thank you for voice to chat. This section is great. That for most is required under our checklist. It is required to have this under NRS for community coordination. This is often simple. Some person will, I think a lot of plans will just say we'll coordinate and we'll have our principal be the designated point of contact for the school and serve in the incident command structure. Simple, great, whatever. I'm fine with that as long as you get something that says who is going to be working with the coordination for responding agencies, because the agencies like law enforcement shows up, they don't know your school layout, they don't know your students, they don't know your bell times, they don't know your structures or who your teachers are. So having somebody in that room with them really makes a difference. And this is the idea that this section of the EOP will address, is that there'll be somebody that can support in case that need arises. So coordination, right? Again,
And Jeremy,
yeah.
one thing they always emphasize is the officers are there for the situation. They're not there to control the kids. That's the administrator's job and the staff.
And so actually I have an example about that. And you're right. So there was a shooting at a school, I believe it was in Minnesota. And so there was nobody from the school inside of that incident command structure. Well, the police are going to do what police need to do. They are going to investigate the crime and address to make sure. So they had the school on lockdown for 6 hours. Nobody was advocating for the children. Kids were literally urinating in buckets, right? It's not a situation you want to be in because you are now the one held accountable regardless because of the lockdown and that the school wasn't letting people in. Could they have done it a different way? I don't know. The situation again is still something that they need to have somebody in there from the school that knows the students and knows the bell times and knows the schedule to at least be there to advocate for them, because there's no way that kids should be using the restroom and peeing in buckets in the middle of their classroom because they're in lockdown. Again, smooth incident command system alignment is critical for events not within the control of the school. But the school does have some control over some events. Again, maybe they could have had structured way to get kids to the bathroom appropriately or delivered food for lunchtime. So 2.5 later, incident is now peacefully resolved. That 2.5 hours later, please advise the school that the incident resolved. You come off lockdown. Simple. What is a possible next step? Yep, notifying the parents, right? Because the parents are probably already aware of the situation, but knowing how and what there's going to happen, especially if reunification is important, if it's after hours. Thank you for mentioning that. That's perfect too. There is some things like you notifying families, but what about documenting the situation or having a debrief? Opening up your emergency operation plans when you have your committee meeting next time. Can you use this as a scenario, as a talking point, and what you had for if this really happened? Post incident communication internally and externally, debrief internally and externally. Thank you. That's fantastic. And especially if you have emergency operation plan committee meeting, talk about this. Talk about the situation. Sit down and open with your meeting and say, we had this situation the past year where we had this law enforcement, we activated this EOP annex, this annex, this annex, and this is how it went. These are some of our failures. These are some of the celebrations we had. I don't know, whatever you want to do, however you want to run your meeting. Again, these are just options to help you get your meeting going. There is nothing in statute that outlines how you have to do it. We just want to make it so that you have communication. And again, documentation, accountability, right? Who are you talking to? Are you going to talk to your PE teacher out there and say, hey, good job keeping those kids safe, or you should have brought them inside? Tony.
Oh, my hand's raised. Hey,
Yeah.
I just wanted to comment on one thing. And if you do not know what unified command is, you definitely are going to want to know what unified command is as you're looking at this stuff, because almost every single incident involving an outside entity like this, where it's not occurring on your campus, it is going to be critical that you establish unified command. Now, one of the reasons is when this incident's happening and police are off campus, who's the incident commander of that event? Well, the answer is which part of the incident, and I'll tell you who the incident commander is. If you're talking about the police, then the police are. If you're talking within the school, you're going to need your own person, because a police sergeant or lieutenant on scene is not going to take over the needs and safety items contained within your school or occurring. It's not going to take care of how you're going to adapt your day to be able to feed your kids and move them internally in a secure school situation. So unified command is essential, because when they go to do that release and they've taken that person into custody, if they're in charge of everything, including your school, you don't have to worry about communication, because by law, they have to put out the communication. They're the incident commander of everything, and there's one voice. But in most cases, 99% of the time, with a school, they only take over a portion of the event. So you have to do your own external and internal communication. It's only if the police end up taking over the whole event, like in an active assailant situation, where the message will be crafted in conjunction with the responding authorities. But unified command is essential. So, and if anybody needs to learn about it, like I said, I think Jeremy brought up ICS 100, 200, 700, and 800. Those are all FEMA courses that are free once the government's open again, that you can take, independent studies. And it has in there about how that would work. But I wanted to bring that up because in this incident, it would have been critical for both the post-incident recovery and the ongoing communication during the event.
Yep. And there is a couple in-person FEMA stuff. If you're in Southern Nevada and Northern Nevada, there's the CERT teams, the Community Emergency Response Teams. They provide training and all that topics. You don't have to join the CERT group as permanently, but they will provide the training in person, which is a lot better. And then I'm trying to get some FEMA trainings in coordination with Dr. Anderson up in Washoe to come down and provide some in-person FEMA trainings as well. So hopefully we can get that established come June and July. I'll make sure that we get some invites. It's going to be capped attendance, so it'll be first come, first serve. But hopefully, once we get established, we'll do a train-the-trainer situation, and then we'll be able to bring it to more schools as time goes through. So anyways, the whole point of this, and then you want to do preparedness and training exercises to go through what you think. And the reason we did this, again, is to identify gaps. So I would say bring it to your team, because it gets people talking about your emergency operation plans, at least get them familiar with it if they've never been on, especially with a parent who just has a pupil. So it's a great tool to use, but again, it's time consuming. So I know if you're very limited, I keep my EOP meetings limited to an hour at a time, because I'm bringing everybody from a state, and it's during the school working hours. So for me to get people from the schools and other jobs in a way on a volunteer basis, it's really difficult for me. So I keep it to an hour time. So for me, it's not realistic to try this approach with a short tabletop. But a couple of things I want to mention. This is meta reporting. I get a lot of feedback about schools. I just did a statewide school safety committee panel with students, and they mentioned that one of the biggest things they're finding is cyberbullying happening online. Your plan is actually required to list in discipline procedures for your school and emergency operation plans. You can simply put, we're going to go to a progressive discipline plan or code of conduct. Each school is supposed to have a code of conduct or discipline plan under NRS, which does get sent to my office, and then they look at this portionality data. Your emergency operation plan can simply say refer to that plan. You don't have to copy and paste the entire plan into your emergency operation plan. But if you're going to put cookie crumbs, you got to make sure that people know how to find it. So maybe include it as an annex or something, I don't know, or a website that tells them where to find it. But one of the things that I found yesterday doing that is that the Instagram cyberbullying is rampant. If you come off and you see get reports of websites on Facebook or Instagram, and it's controlled by Meta, send it to me. If it can constitute cyberbullying or threats of violence, we can get it expedited for review and taken down. That is a partnership we have with Meta. They have been very good about responding within hours to me. However, if you report directly to them, you're not going to be on the priority list. So it might take up to a week to have that site taken down. And if it's a threat of school violence, obviously we want to get that taken down as fast as possible. So, again, my email is the one you want to do for this, for the meta reporting. Anyways, this is my contact information. This is my office line direct. It's not an extension. You can call it anytime. You can email me anytime. I'm here to support you guys. I have a model plan that I will send to anybody. Again, because the law says that you have to include provisions in your EOP, which is in our model plan. I work very hard to make sure that I don't include any requirements that is not already spelled out by NRS. But sometimes you never know what's going to happen in the future. So I'm more than willing to send a model plan to anybody that requests it, but I cannot post it publicly and I can't put it on our website. You have to request it because the model plan itself is copy and pasted by a lot of different schools. So we could inadvertently be giving somebody else's plan. So again, you can just take it, and I get requests all the time. I think today I had somebody request that says they just want to compare our model plan to what they got. Great. You don't have to do it. It's an option. It's just a tool. It's a resource. It is not something you have to use. You can do it your own way. You just have to meet certain components in the bill, your plan that's required in legislation. I make sure that I include everything in the legislation and the model plan as a template that you can copy and over and structure it in a way that matches our uh, Office Emergency Management's checklist. I am more than happy to provide any information and help you making your plans and your teams or whatever. That's what I'm here for because your success is my success. So thank you, everybody. If there's any questions, now's the time. Otherwise, thank you.
Do we have any questions for Jeremy or Tony? Okay. Well, let's thank Jeremy and Tony for all
Actually, I
this
do have
information.
one request.
Um,
Everything's hidden results. This is just a quick evaluation piece. It's a little slider, just slide things so I can improve my training and stuff like that. The more your feedback you can provide, the better. There's also a way you can leave personalized feedback on the contact stuff where you can go through and on the form there'll be something that says uh somewhere along the lines of I don't know, it's on the next slide, I'll show you. But this is all anonymous. Be honest. You're not gonna hurt my feelings. Um, I want to make this, I'm here for you guys. And if you have personalized requests that you want to one-on-one, great. I'm more than happy to do it one-on-one. I'm more than happy to make sure these trainings fit the needs of your schools. Like if you notice this time, I didn't go over every requirement in the EOPs because my feedback I got was last year was, hey, we know all this, just give me the new stuff. So anything you tell me is what I'm going to focus my attention to because I don't want to waste your time. And I sure know that your time is very valuable. And I prefer you guys spending your time with students. So the fact that you all came here today to even sit through this, I'm very thankful and I appreciate all of you. And if you're watching a recording, hell, you made it this far. Thank you. You can still fill out the survey, I believe, if it's a recording.